Hundreds of years ago, two brothers created a school to maintain the balance between good and evil in the world of fairy tales. For ages, Rafal and Rion shared power peacefully, but one day things changed and they decided to face each other. Due to his greed, Rafal challenged his twin brother to a duel, the prize being control of the entire school. In an attempt to avoid confrontation, Rion decided not to retaliate and only tried to defend himself, but his peacefulness came at a high price. After being captured, he discovered that his brother had learned how to access blood magic, and even knowing the risks of being consumed by his own power, Rafal decided to use it to break the balance by eliminating his brother. However, when he was about to lose the battle, Rion decided to deliver a final blow and pushed his evil brother off the cliff to save his own life. Many years later, in a distant land, a new story unfolded with a girl named Sophie, who was destined to change the world. Although she had always dreamed of a princess's life, the young woman was born into a very poor family and had to share a small house with several siblings. Meanwhile, on the other side of Gavalden, on the outskirts of town, in a humble cottage atop Graves Hill, lived a girl named Agatha, who was raised by a mother who identified herself as a witch, even though her potions never worked. However, Agatha's mother placed all her hopes in the girl, as she saw in her daughter all the qualities inherent in a true witch. The only similarity between the two young women is that they both hate the town where they live, and because of this, they ended up becoming great friends. After Sophie's mother perished when she was still a child, Agatha appeared in her life, and since then, they have been inseparable. When Sophie sees Agatha being threatened by a madman who tries to expel her from Gavalden, calling her a witch, she immediately comes to her friend's defense and hits the man on the head with a frying pan. That afternoon, the pair decide to stop by the library and hear about the School of Good and Evil, where all fairy tales originate. According to the librarian, 20 years ago, a girl named Leonora was taken from that village during the night. Many believe she was taken to the School of Good and Evil for some reason, but no one knows for sure what happened to her. As soon as she gets home after hearing this story, Sophie decides to write a letter to the School of Good and Evil to introduce herself as a possible candidate, as she is willing to try anything to escape her current life. Sometime after placing the letter on the wishing tree, Sophie returns to see if her letter has been found, but finds the envelope exactly where she left it. At that moment, the young woman decides to take control of her destiny, and during the night, she decides to flee the city. Before she has a chance to escape, she is found by Agatha, and both see red smoke spreading across the skies. Suddenly, a creature with fiery eyes appears and captures Sophie. As she is being taken away, the girl celebrates and says goodbye to Gavalden, but Agatha runs to free her friend. When the young woman finally manages to prevent Sophie from being taken away, a giant bird emerges from behind the bushes and captures both girls, who end up being taken away together. While Agatha is thrown into the School of Good, Sophie is taken straight to the School of Evil and is terrified to realize that she is surrounded by villains. When she wakes up in a flower bed, Agatha is snubbed by the princesses and the fairies drag her to her first day of class. Before going through orientation, Agatha is taken to the beautification room and discovers that teacher Devey was waiting for her. After dressing appropriately, Agatha heads to the room where all the newcomers are gathered and starts looking for her friend. However, when she finally finds Sophie, she is prevented from approaching her, and both are forced to sit on opposite sides of the room. Soon after, the princes of the School of Good appear to perform a sword fight, and at the end of the show, Tedros makes a triumphant entrance. The young man is the son of King Arthur and breaks hearts wherever he goes, including Sophie's, who can't take her eyes off him. In an attempt to demonstrate his fighting skills, Tedros challenges all the other princes to a battle and manages to defeat them without the aid of his sword. Soon after, the villains rise to fight Tedros, so the prince draws Excalibur to secure his victory against the Cyclops. When the principal appears, Agatha claims there has been a mistake and asks how to return home, but Sophie wants to know how to change schools. However, Rion says that there are no mistakes at that school and that the two girls are exactly where they should be. At dusk, while trapped in her room, Agatha decides to walk across the roof to get to the neighboring school and is chased by a monster along the way. When she finally manages to enter the School of Evil, Agatha sees a pool of blood forming on the floor, and from the middle of it emerges Rafal, who orders the young woman to stay away from Sophie, as the girl has a destiny to fulfill. At that moment, Agatha realizes that her friend is in more trouble than she could have imagined and continues searching for her until she finds her. Then they break into the principal's office and try to convince him that there has been a mistake. However, to prove that she was sent to the wrong school and convince Storian to change her story, Sophie will have to earn the kiss of true love. After setting her goal, the girl devises a plan to make Tedros fall in love with her and asks Agatha for help in getting closer to him. That afternoon, the young woman delivers her friend's letter to the prince and claims that Sophie is not a villain, she was just sent to the wrong school. Then, both attend a forest survival class with Yuba, the gnome of the Blue Forest. In the first few minutes of class, the students discover that every corner of that forest holds an imminent threat, and after being bitten by one of the wildflowers, Gregor decides to run away. Terrified, the young man runs back to school and Agatha follows him, as she wants to prevent her classmate from failing for the third time. On the first day of class, the young people were informed about what happens to students after failing for the third time, but Gregor decided to ignore this warning and ended up being punished. At that moment, Sophie is in talent enhancement class and ends up getting into trouble with Hester, a witch with a dragon tattoo who uses her pet monster to chase her enemy. While trying to dodge the attacks, Sophie hears Lady Lesso advising her to use her powers to defend herself. The problem is that the girl has no idea what her abilities are, and when she is about to be eliminated, a swarm of bees invades the room. At that moment, the dragon is trapped and stung countless times. Seeing Hester about to lose her life, Lady Lesso orders Sophie to stop the attack, and the girl orders the bees to leave the dragon alone. As the swarm is about to leave, the teacher sees the image of Rafal, who congratulates Sophie on her excellent work. As soon as the headmaster's brother leaves, Lady Lesso drags Sophie into a private conversation and reveals that evil has not defeated good since Rafal disappeared. However, for some reason, Sophie's powers have attracted his attention, which indicates that the girl is a true member of the School of Evil. After saying this, Lady Lesso advises Sophie not to tell anyone about what happened and asks the girl to let her know if Rafal comes to visit her again. The next day, while learning the rules of that school with Professor DeVay, Agatha asks what happened to Gregor and discovers that he was transformed into a magical creature, like the wish fish that live in that lake. When they place their hands on the lake, the young princesses see the illustration of their heart's greatest desire, but when it is Agatha's turn, the fish gather around her hand and she pulls a princess out of the water. At that moment, the girl reveals that she failed more than 100 years ago, and for the first time, someone wished to free her. After thanking Agatha for saving her, the girl disappears, and a bird similar to the one that took her to the School of Good approaches. Terrified, the young woman tries to flee, but soon realizes that she is facing Gregor and tries to help him free himself. Seeing the monster approaching Agatha, Tedros quickly realizes that she is in danger and throws his sword into the giant bird's heart. At that moment, Gregor's body explodes and Agatha strikes the prince, accusing him of eliminating her friend. While trying to calm Agatha down, the teacher orders the other students to return to their rooms and states that she is standing before the first real princess to pass through that school in a long time. According to DeVay, there was a time when good was real and true, but now they are in an era of perfectionism and exaggerated ego. Despite this, Agatha used her wish to save a girl who had been imprisoned for over a century, and thanks to her empathy, she managed to do good through magic. During the break between classes, Agatha goes to talk to her friend and finds out that Sophie has received a visit from Rafal. At that moment, Tedros approaches with his black eye, and for the first time, Sophie has the chance to talk to him. However, the conversation is interrupted by the arrival of one of the guards, who takes the girl to the punishment room, where Lady Lesso is waiting. After tying her to a chair, the teacher takes an axe and cuts Sophie's hair, believing that the young woman's beauty is preventing people from seeing who she really is. That afternoon, while lamenting everything that is happening in her life, Sophie receives a visit from Rafal and decides to follow his advice to do whatever it takes to get what she wants. In another joint lesson, DeVay and Lady Lesso reveal that in order to access their magic, heroes and villains must first unlock their finger glow. While the students have their powers unlocked, Sophie appears with a whole new look and thanks Lady Lesso for helping her revamp her appearance. As soon as her powers are unlocked, Sophie starts acting like a shrew and forms an alliance with the villains in her class, who were previously her enemies. When she realizes that her friend is becoming further and further away from someone Tedros would fall in love with, Agatha realizes she needs to do something and advises her to take archery class. According to legend, only students from the School of Good can hit the target, as it takes a pure heart to be a good archer. However, with Agatha's help, Sophie manages to hit the target and prove to Tedros that she is worthy of his love. When they discover that the most popular prince in school has invited someone from the School of Evil to the dance, the students go to war and the teachers from both schools decide to get together to discuss what to do about it. Convinced that they are about to experience true love, the couple decides to appear before the teachers to defend their relationship, and the principal suggests that a tail test be applied to test their relationship. To pass this test, Each of them will have to enter the Blue Forest from opposite sides and fight any danger that arises on the way to meet each other by dawn. As soon as the sun sets, the couple is taken to the gates and given a red scarf that must be thrown on the ground if one of them wants to give up the test. By doing so, they will be immediately transported to a safe place. Shortly after crossing the gates, Sophie begins to search for Tedros and ends up being attacked by carnivorous flowers. Hearing her friend's screams, Agatha, who is on the other side of the wall, decides to use her powers to help her and transforms into a dove to go after her. As she walks in the darkness, Sophie comes across a scarecrow with a pumpkin head and begins to be chased. When the young woman is about to be hit by the scythe, Agatha appears and manages to knock the creature down. After helping her friend up, she runs to the center of the forest and hears Tedros' voice, then orders Sophie to continue in his direction. However, before the couple can meet, the scarecrow rises from the ground and attacks the prince, who ends up losing his sword while trying to defeat it. Seeing her classmate in danger, Agatha advises Sophie to do something to help him, but the girl remains motionless, paralyzed with fear. When she realizes that Tedros will end up being eliminated, Agatha decides to act and finds a way to get the sword to him. After eliminating the monster, the prince realizes that Sophie cheated and is disappointed to discover that she would not risk herself to help him. At that moment, Tedros drops the red scarf and is transported back to school, while Sophie accuses her friend of sabotaging her relationship with the prince. After declaring war on her best friend, Sophie leaves and Agatha comes across Rafal, who is happy to see that his plan for revenge is going exactly as he imagined. When she arrives at her dormitory, Agatha tells Professor DeVay that she saw Rafal in the forest and is going to talk to Lady Lasso. Meanwhile, Sophie is grounded in her room as punishment for cheating on the test and receives a visit from the principal's brother, who shares with her the gift of manipulating blood magic. During the discussion between teachers from the two schools, Principal Rion appears and reveals that Sophie has disappeared. While the teachers split up to look for her, Agatha goes to the dance in the hope that her friend will show up there. When she finally finds the girl, Lady Lasso realizes that she looks completely different and asks what Rafal has done to her. At that moment, Sophie reveals that she knows her teacher's secret, as Rafal told her that she is the girl who was taken from Gavaldan 20 years ago. Leonora, as she was known before becoming a teacher at the School of Evil, was a lonely reader who, like Sophie, dreamed of a different and more meaningful life. One day, Leonora caught Rafal's attention, who saw in her an evil that even she herself did not know she had, and took her to that school so that the young woman could develop her abilities. At that moment, Professor DeVay appears and both discover that Sophie has made a deal with Rafal to manipulate blood magic. Meanwhile, when she arrives at the ball looking for her friend, Agatha runs into Tedros, and the prince thanks her for saving his life in the forest. According to him, throughout his entire life, no one has ever supported him in that way, and it made him realize that Agatha is his true love. Surprised by this unexpected declaration of love, Agatha says that this is a terrible time, as Rafal is using Sophie to destroy the schools. At that moment, Sophie appears and everyone is shocked by her new appearance. Upon discovering that her beloved prince is interested in Agatha, the girl feels betrayed and threatens to destroy her friend. Seeing a princess in danger, all the princes draw their swords, but Sophie uses her powers to melt the weapons and leaves after signing a treaty of war with her best friend. Soon after, the students discover that the entire faculty of both schools has been turned into dolls, and Tedros decides to wage war against the witch. The problem is that good, by definition, cannot use its power to attack, only to defend itself. Otherwise, good turns into evil. Knowing this, Agatha decides to use her powers to stop the war. Otherwise, in addition to losing her best friend, the School of Good will cease to exist. Upon arriving at the School of Evil's ball, the young woman finds all the villains dancing and having fun, just waiting for the heroes to arrive. After storming the tower, the princes shoot at Sophie, but before they even hit her, the arrows turn into flowers. At that moment, a reversal of polarities occurs and good turns into evil. Consequently, evil becomes good to balance the scales, and all the witches' costumes turn into princess dresses. After regaining her original appearance, Sophie watches as Tedros and the other princes undergo the process of transformation from evil. Once the reversal is complete, Sophie and her friends fight back to defend themselves, and a great war begins. While Sophie orchestrates the entire battle and enjoys watching good being defeated, Agatha struggles to appease everyone, but is ignored by all. Seeing Tedros being struck by Horde, Agatha runs towards him to try to help him, but is captured by Sophie. After imprisoning her old friend, the young witch flies to the headmaster's tower and discovers that Rion was actually Rafal all along. According to him, the seers warned him about Sophie's potential, so Rafal decided to grant the girl's request and brought her to that school. When asked why he pretended to be the headmaster, Rafal reveals that centuries ago, he and his twin brother were given the duty of caring for Storian, as the bond between them was stronger than their antagonistic souls. As long as one protected the other, they would remain young and immortal. However, over time, Rafal was overcome by greed and waged war against his brother. After the battle, while mourning the loss of his twin brother, Rion was stabbed in the back and ended up being eliminated by the person he trusted most. After his brother was gone, Rafal assumed his identity to hide his true intentions, and gradually began to destroy the balance between good and evil. Rafal's subtle actions over the past 200 years made good become vain, and thus it became corrupted, until he could finally play his final card. Thanks to Sophie, all of Rafal's efforts were rewarded, and now he intends to join her through the kiss of true love so that they can rule together. After kissing the principal, Sophie hears Storian writing the end of her story and discovers that by kissing Rafal, she has condemned the students of both schools to a terrible end. Seeing the School of Evil building destroyed along with her friends, Sophie immediately regrets her decision, realizing she has been deceived. The young woman's goal was not to destroy all those people, but to rule over them. However, Rafal decided to eliminate all the students and teachers to start his reign from scratch. Suddenly, Agatha appears, and Sophie is relieved to find that her friend is alive. Immediately, the young woman runs to hug her, and Rafal orders Agatha to stay away from his fiancé. At that moment, Agatha states that as long as she is alive, Rafal will never have her friend, so the principal decides to use Storian to put an end to the last survivor of the School of Good. Seeing the flying pen heading toward her childhood friend, Sophie uses her own body as a shield to protect her and ends up getting hit in the heart. After Sophie's demonstration of true love for her friend, the School for Good and Evil is rebuilt, and Rafal sees his entire plan ruined. At that moment, Tedros invades the tower and sneaks up on the headmaster. When he is about to be struck, Rafal uses his powers to push the prince away and manages to immobilize him. Seeing the prince in danger, Agatha once again decides to act, and after grabbing Excalibur with Sophie's help, the young woman strikes her opponent in the chest and the headmaster's body crumbles to ashes. After destroying the evil that plagued that school, Agatha rushes to support her friend, and Sophie states that she does not want to be evil. However, Agatha affirms that her friend is not evil, but human. This implies having both good and evil within her, but Sophie can choose which one to follow. Before losing consciousness, Sophie declares her love for Agatha and promises that she will always be her best friend. When she realizes that Sophie is gone, Agatha begins to cry and lies down on her friend's body. Suddenly, she hears Sophie's heart beating and she opens her eyes. In addition to saving the School of Good and Evil from the greatest threat it has ever faced, the two friends changed the world of fairy tales forever, because thanks to them, good and evil learned to live together in harmony. After uniting the two schools, the young women decided to return to Gavalden, and before leaving, Agatha bids Tedros farewell with a kiss. After so much time away from home, the two girls were welcomed with open arms by their family and began to use their new powers to get back at the people who called them witches. This could be the end of Sophie and Agatha's story, but as Tedros' arrow pierced both worlds, it became clear that this was only the beginning. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.